Hello guys and girls, and welcome back to another episode of Seb Talks Sports. That intro music and podcast theme was created by All-Pro New York Giants running back, now music creator and friend of the show, David Wilson. Go and check him out on all of his social media platforms at For Still Running on Twitter and Instagram, and his music under David E. Wilson across all good music streaming services. He's free for business, so drop him a message if you want some beats for your podcast, advert, commercial, absolutely anything you need. Before I get into this episode, I just want to say that if you're not already following Seb Talks Sports across all platforms, then please do. You can find me on Facebook, Seb Talks Sports, YouTube, Seb Talks Sports, Twitter at Seb Talks Sports, and Instagram where I'm primarily active. Again, it's at Seb Talks Sports. Today I've got a brilliant guest and another former player for my favourite team, the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's a Pro Bowl kicker and 8-year NFL veteran who spent 7 years and played in over 100 games in Duval, totaling nearly 800 points, the second most in franchise history. It's the man with a leg of iron and nerves of steel, Mike Hollis. Enjoy! My guest today is a Pro Bowl kicker and 8-year NFL veteran who played 7 years, over 100 games, and scored 764 points for my Jacksonville Jaguars, the second most in franchise history. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome Mike Hollis to Seb Talk Sports. Mike, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing, Seb?
I'm very good. Thank you again for joining me today, and I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so in 1995, after your college career at both Wenatchee Valley College and the University of Idaho, Tom Coughlin picked up the phone and gave you a call to invite you to join and become the kicker of brand new NFL franchise, the Jacksonville Jaguars. So how excited were you to receive that call and contribute to this galvanizing team? And what were your first impressions of Jacksonville when you first arrived?
You know, it was a very interesting sort of story with regards to my road to Jacksonville. The previous year in '94, I was actually with the Chargers preseason, of course, competing against a guy like by the name of John Carney, and so I knew I was just going to be a camp guy, which was a great experience for me, and it was an awesome time to learn from like someone like John, and you know. After I got released from the Chargers, the World League was stepping up again, and they were about to start playing the World League again. And the general manager for the Chargers and my agent at the time both told me, he said, "Listen, don't enroll in any classes at Idaho. We're going to put you on this draft list, and you'll definitely you'll get drafted into the World League. So don't waste your time getting involved in classes just yet." And then unfortunately, the draft for the World League came and went, and I did not get picked. So I was a little bit bummed about that, clearly, but it was actually a blessing in disguise because I did have other opportunities to work out for some NFL teams during that time, and Jacksonville was kind of one of them. We had a punter at Idaho by the name of Eddie Howard that was getting some looks from the NFL, and he was a good friend of mine, clearly. He was my punter my last year at Idaho as well, but I told Eddie, I said, "Listen, anytime you're going to have a scout or anybody come in and look at you, let me know. I'll be on the other end of the field kicking." And he said, "Yeah, clearly." He said, and then Jacksonville came in to look at him, and so I took that opportunity to be on the other end of the field kicking away while Eddie was doing his workout. And when Eddie was done with his workout, I went over and introduced myself to the scout, and he did notice. He took notice and said, "Yeah, you look like you're kicking well, and I mentioned that I was with the Chargers and so forth, but so I think that kind of opened a little bit of a door at that time. But when it came down to deciding, to fast forward and now NFL teams are picking up their players, and the Chargers actually had an interest again for me the next year, '95, and right around that time though, I got some interest from Jacksonville, but they wanted me to send some film in. So I sent them some film and everything was great. And a couple of weeks had gone by, and I actually told Bobby Beathard, the general manager for the Chargers, I said, "Listen, I might have an opportunity with Jacksonville. They've expressed some interest. Can you give me some time to see what they're all about?" And he was just graciously, he said, "Yes, absolutely. We understand. It's great. Just let us know." And I had sent, Jacksonville some film and everything, and they liked, they came back to my agent and said, "We really like Mike's film, but Tom Coughlin is looking for a bigger kicker. He wanted somebody who had a bigger frame and stature and so forth." But I had a kicking coach, and I still kind of do. I mean, he's in my business together. We do pro form kicking here in Jacksonville, but Jim, went to the nearest payphone. Back then there wasn't cell phones, but went to the nearest payphone and called up Jacksonville and, basically, told them what he thought. So listen, you guys have no idea what you're talking about. Mike kicks like he's 6'2". Why would it matter what he physically is? It doesn't have anything to do with what his job would be, other than maybe making tackles. Now, if I was a punter, it might be a little different story because, you get a high snap as a punter. And if I'm too short, I can't jump up to grab the ball. I get that part. But as a kicker, it really doesn't matter. So he did enough convincing to get me my first of 2 workouts with the Jaguars. So, again, it took me 2 workouts to get Tom Coughlin to be convinced that I was good enough to play. And I know during those times they were looking at other kickers as well, and they couldn't find anybody they liked. And so I worked out for them in Washington State. We kind of met in the middle of the state in the Tri-Cities area and worked out and I had a great workout. And then, then I go back and they're evaluating the workout and I'm anxious to see what they have to say. And they weren't really responding to my agent's, phone calls and things like that. And meanwhile, the Chargers were still waiting patiently on me. So I didn't want to lose an opportunity to go to the Chargers. And I literally said, I told my family on a Sunday, I remember it vividly. It was a Sunday evening. I said, tomorrow morning I got to call, the Chargers and just, accept that. I don't want to burn that opportunity, go back to another training camp. And literally that Monday morning, before I had a chance to call the Chargers, Jacksonville had called me up and said, hey, Tom Coughlin wants to see you kick personally. So we're going to fly you into Jacksonville and give you a workout. So clearly that was a very, very timely thing that was amazing. And it was pretty cool to have that happen. But, of course, they flew me in and I was the only guy they flew in. So I felt good about that. And I did pretty good in my workout as well. And they signed me. So it was a very exciting time. Obviously being a new team, I knew nothing about Jacksonville. And to answer your question about my first experience, I'm flying into Jacksonville. Of course, there's a really bad storm. But you get low enough to see the trees, and I'm like, where are all the palm trees? There's not palm trees out there up north by the airport. So I didn't really know if I was in Florida or not because, again, I grew up in Washington State. I've never been to Florida or anywhere else. Atlanta, the year before for a tryout for the Falcons. But I was looking for palm trees and didn't see them. And then, of course, we, get into the car and we drive into the hotel. And then the next day, get up in the morning. I think it was raining again and drive into the stadium, which at the time was kind of a bunch of, it was a stadium. You could see the stadium, but the parking lot was full of mud and trailers that the coaches were coaching out of and doing, that was our coaches' offices back then. And, in the parking lot itself, a dirt parking lot. So it was kind of like, whoa, this is kind of awkward. I didn't really know what to expect, but definitely a new team and a new experience. And it was from that point on, it was incredible to be a part of something so magical, and especially how well we did early on in those, 96 and 97 and then 99, of course, going to both those AFC Championship games, 96 and 99. Those were amazing experiences. And to be the first, you always talk about these records and, oh, Mike had this record, he had that record. There's one record that has not gotten broken and it will never get broken, would be the first points in franchise history. So no matter how many kickers they bring into Jacksonville, no other kicker will beat that record. Yeah, obviously records are meant to be broken and Scobie's done a fabulous job or did a fabulous job for us. And now Lambeau is doing an incredible job. So the Jaguars are set at the kicking position for sure.
Indeed. So, of course, as a member of special teams and with a very different discipline to both the offensive and defensive players, I'd love to know what a typical day of training camp and midweek training looks for a kicker throughout the season. So how does it differ to that of your teammates not involved on special teams, and how often do your paths cross?
Well, it's for what I was doing, and I learned a lot of the things that I've implemented in my career with Jacksonville and any other team I've been with. I've learned a lot from Brian Barker. He was the punter on the Jaguars in 94, actually. He officially signed in 94, but he was the first punter, of course, and he had 4 or 5 years, probably 5 years, I think, of NFL experience prior to that. So definitely took me under his wing and was able to kind of show me the ropes. So he was able to kind of, show me how to deal with certain things and so forth. But again, it was an amazing experience to have that kind of help and with regards to my work ethic. Again, another thing I learned from Brian, and again, I'm a team player. I'm not going to be one of those weird kickers that kind of sits out in the corner and doesn't associate with my teammates. I've never been that guy. And I wanted to, be part of the team in a way that the guys would respect that I was a hard worker and that I cared. I think that was kind of the biggest thing that kickers typically would have to deal with, is if they showed a non-interest in anything else going on and they didn't really have that care or that work ethic or the attitude, they lost respect. The respect was not really given to those kind of kickers because of obvious reasons. So I didn't want to be disrespected by my team. I wanted them to really, embrace what I'm doing. I'm in it for, to win. I'm here as a team player. I want to do whatever I can do personally for my success, but also, for the team success. And every time I had an opportunity to get out there and do some things for those guys during special teams. So, for example, Brian be doing a punt return drill or a punt, drill during practice. And I would be running out there I'd be on the field with a bunch of rolled up towels. And I would run up to the return guy and I would throw towels up in the air to distract him, to keep him from, and I did this on my own. I wasn't asked to do that. And the coaches told me to do that. And when I first did it, I was wondering if this is going to be okay. Are they going to be okay with this? And nobody said a word. They actually encouraged more of it. So it was kind of those kind of examples. And I wanted to be a team player. And I worked out, as far as the training camp is concerned, there's, pre-practice and then a middle of practice sort of special teams, periods, I guess I should say. But so those specific times we would be engaged in whatever was going on special teams. And it wasn't always, if it was a punt return team, clearly I'm not doing anything in that, or punt return or a punt drill as well. But I always found, and again, I learned a lot of this from Brian and just kind of, and it fit right in with my mentality as well. It's just do what the team would want me to do, help out however I can. And so I was always trying to be involved in a lot of the team activities, and running around was part of it. And Brian and we do our own conditioning as well. And, say if, the team wasn't practicing real well and Tom might've been upset about some things and he'd make the team run, we're running too. Yeah. Clearly we're running. So we never left the field. We didn't go play golf. We didn't go inside and order pizza. We never did that. Obviously with Tom and the way he had the team structured and his rules and things like that. Clearly we weren't allowed to do that, but we didn't want to do that. We wanted to stay out there. Yeah, we'd sit under the tent and in the shade and have some Gatorade and some, things like that. But we definitely were stretching or running or somehow trying to be incorporating ourselves into the team activities as much as we could, just to show our support and want to, clearly help out the team and do whatever we can to do that.
Fantastic. Okay, and as a kicker, I would say that you hold arguably and very possibly the most important position responsibility-wise when it comes to the end of games and securing the win for your team, head-to-head with the quarterback. So how much pressure did you feel sitting on the sidelines every game with the offense and defense out there on the field, knowing that your attempt could make or break the game or even a season? So how were you able to deal with that pressure? And is there any way you trained specifically for it?
Great question. The first part of my answer would be exactly what I just talked about, how I wanted to gain the respect of my teammates by being a team player. And I didn't have many guys. I can't even think of any one guy that if I had missed a kick or an important kick, not one guy came around me and, shunned me or said some things that were negative. They were all very supportive of me. And they should know how important the job is as a kicker. I understand that's our only job and it's all we do all day long is kick field goals. But again, it's a very tedious thing. And there's an operation, the snap to hold the kick happens under 1.3 seconds. And, there's a lot of variables and room for error in that sort of skill. And so they understand that. And you can always see the guys that want to, go out there pre-practice and kick the ball around. And of course, all the linemen and all the guys, I want to kick, they get out there and clearly most of them cannot kick at all. And so they by doing that, they actually learn a little bit more of respect for me as a kicker, because they know how hard it is to do. So getting the respect from the guys took a lot of pressure off me in those kind of situations. And to get more specific, how would I deal with pressure on my own? I'm a lot different when it comes to the thought process of being out on the field and kicking and how to deal with any, stress or mentally how to deal with that sort of atmosphere and what's on the line and all that. And of course I coach kicking. I have been for 14 years. And one of the things that is really imperative that these kids that we coach, they have to understand is that the result is not the most important thing, which they think, wait, what do you mean? You don't care if you make or miss the kick? I'm like, well, I don't care where the ball goes. It's kind of strange because I care more about my technique and my fundamentals, what I'm doing to make the ball go where it's supposed to go. Yeah. Therefore, it's a kind of a backwards mentality where I'm thinking about the process that makes the ball go through way more importantly than I am the actual result of what I'm trying to do. So, and that again, if you want to add pressure, so you say, for example, you're kicking a game-winning kick, and you think of all the variables like, oh my gosh, if I miss this kick, we lose. Oh my gosh, there's 3 seconds left on the game clock. We have no more time to kick. If I miss this kick, my teammates are going to get all over me. If I miss this kick, the fans are going to hate me. The coaches are going to. If you build yourself up with all of that negativity, you're adding more pressure to yourself. So again, that opposite way of thinking, I dumbed everything down. I wanted to make that process as simple and repeatable as I possibly could so that there's nothing, and if you think about it, if you really boil it down, why would you treat a game-winning kick any different than your first extra point of the game?
Yeah.
There's no, every single kick is important. Yes, I understand how much more important a game-winning kick would be, but dumbing it down and breaking it down into taking, more pressure off myself, if you just dumb it down and just do what you normally would do and not have to second guess yourself and think you have to do anything more. And that's another thing that Brian Barker taught me is like, listen, Mike, game day is game day. You don't have to do any more on game day than you do during the week of practice. The field is the same length. The uprights are the same, width and height, and there's nothing different. It looks maybe a little different because you're actually inside of a stadium. Things look a little different, but they're not. You do the same things in practice that you're going to be doing today in the game. And if you try harder, you're probably going to make yourself worse. So when you go into a game thinking you've got to be your best today, I got to make every kick, I got to have every kick go through the end zone. If you put all that pressure on yourself, you're going to second guess yourself and you're going to add more things that you do within each kick that clearly, and of course I'm very technical with what I teach and what I did during my career, you're adding more movements and you're adding more room for error when you get caught up into second guessing yourself and thinking you've got to add more to the actual kick. And in reality, you don't do anything, you actually do less. You got the excitement there of the game. You got the pressure, the fans, it's game day, the adrenaline's pumping already. You don't need any more help. Just do what you normally do the other day in practice. And there's nothing different. So that was my mental sort of way of thinking of things. And there's kickers out there, many of them, I'm sure, that hire sports psychologists to help them deal with game day and how to think and this and that. I never had to do that. I never felt the need because it was my form and technique that really was the reason why the kicks were going through. It wasn't me athletically. And I've coached kids all the time, and I'm 5'7" on a 5'8" on a good day. So 5'7" typically, but 180 pounds when I played. So and I wasn't very good as far as an athlete is concerned. I was not the most athletic kid growing up. So I know that it's technique. Yeah. Clearly it's technique that I've developed that makes the kick go. It's not me being real athletic and just kind of going through the motions and just trying to steer the football through. It's the technique that did it for me. So I think that helped a lot with my mental awareness of what it is that had to happen during each kick. Just rely on the technique because I know I did it, last, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever. During the weeks of practice, I was kicking just fine. Why should I do anything different just because it's game day?
Yeah, absolutely. So throughout your time in Jacksonville and, of course, on the Bills, that season you spent there, you played with some fantastic players. So Tony Baselli, of course, Mark Brunell, Jimmy Smith, Keenan McCardell, Fred Taylor's on the back of this jersey I'm wearing right now, Tony Brackens and Drew Bledsoe in Buffalo. And, of course, your long-term punter and holder, Brian Barker, who you mentioned, who I can imagine you were very close to, given the nature of your jobs. So, of course, these guys and any other you'd like to mention, of course, which single player struck out to you ability-wise as the most talented star you've ever played alongside? Like when you're watching from the sidelines, was there anyone in particular on your team and as well as the opponent's team?
Well, I mean, all the guys that you mentioned, they all stood out for me as far as watching, them as my teammates. Your Mark Brunells, your Tony Baselli's, your Fred Taylor's, Jimmy Smith, Keenan McCardell, Keenan and Jimmy together, yeah. Unbelievable. They were incredible. Made some plays that you're just like, wow, how did that happen? Fred Taylor, and Fred's story is great because they all kind of poo-pooed him a little bit, we first got there, he wasn't having the greatest training camp, but look at him now. I mean, you got to be kidding me. Fred Taylor is a stud athlete, and he's done an incredible job. And the thing with Fred is he worked really hard. And when he first came into Jacksonville, he kind of had a persona about him. I think he might have had a couple gold teeth. He kind of had that way of being the football player from Florida, this and that. Well, it wasn't like he had any sort of incident that humbled him. He just got better as a player, and he's already been great. But he got the respect from the team and started playing really, really well. And you started to see him kind of mature into more of a businessman at that point. Coming in, he looked like he was just a football player, but going out, Fred Taylor was a businessman. He took his job serious, and he worked very hard. And that's the other thing too, with guys like those guys, Brunells and Jimmy Smith and Freds and those guys, Tony Brackens, they all worked really hard. And that was one of many things that Tom Coughlin was really good at, was finding team players that worked hard and wanted to win. He didn't once he sensed that a player might have a chance of being an individual on a football team, no matter how good of an athlete he was, I think Tom would bypass that kind of guy, definitely. And I saw it in the team meeting rooms with the players we had in those early years. Tom was very strict, and we had player only team meetings after to talk about what's going on and how do we deal with this coach that's so strict with us. But the thing is, we were a team. And there was no individuals out there that decided not to play one day or not work hard one day. We were all a team. We were all team players. We all worked hard every single day. And, Tom's the head coach, but we're thinking more as like, we want to win this for the city and the team. Yeah, Tom's our coach. He's going to tell us what to do, and he's helping us with things. And, he's got his way of things, but you kind of have to deal with it. And looking back now, especially looking back now, you might have thought when we were playing and back in the day as a young, I was 22 or 23 when I got in, and your mind is different but at that age, and you think, yeah, this is crazy. This guy's nuts. Why is he telling me to, bed checks this, bed checks that? And my socks, I got to wear Jaguar issue socks, and everything's so tedious. But you look back like, you know what, I really appreciate that. It made me a better person. It made me look a little bit more in detail, especially me for a kicker. I had to really be detailed in what I was doing on normal every day during practice and games, of course. And Tom just added more emphasis to being very tedious and specific with everything you're doing. So I had amazing experiences. And to give you an example of somebody on the other team, Brett Favre was one of those guys that I was just like, what just happened? Like, this is I'm speechless when I watch some of his play. And he was a guy like that, and also Barry Sanders. Those two guys were just one of the most incredible athletes, and just the way they made plays and the way they moved and what they did and the quick decisions they made were just incredible. Unbelievable athletes.
Yeah, two great answers there. I'm a big Barry Sanders fan myself. Absolutely incredible athlete. Okay, so as well as players, you've been coached by some fantastic special teams coaches too throughout your career. So primarily Larry Pascal, who was NFL Special Teams Coach of the Year in 1990 with the Chargers, who you were talking about before. You moved to Jacksonville. And obviously you're 5 years in Jacksonville, as well as two-time winner of the same award, Frank Gans and Danny Smith in Buffalo. So how much did those three coaches individually and collectively contribute and improve your ability as a kicker? And do you remember the most important piece of advice they ever gave you?
Larry, I spent the most time with the special teams coach was with Larry Pasquale. And Larry was a very detailed man, of course. And the greatest thing about Larry was he wasn't going to try to change me as a kicker. He knew, and that's the way it, in my opinion, it should be, where if you get to that level in the NFL, you've obviously done something right. You've got some things down that you do very good, and that's the reason you've got that opportunity to sign a contract at the NFL level. And if you come into a team that you have a special teams coach that wants to immediately start changing you and changing what you're doing and telling you how to do things, you're like, wait, I've been doing what I'm doing for so long, and now you're telling me to – and of course, you can't disrespect it. You got to learn and listen and do your thing. But I was very fortunate that I never had a special teams coach in the NFL that was ever like that. They never, neither one of those three guys you just mentioned, and I'll throw in Bonamego as well. None of those guys were ever in my business as far as what to do or how to do it differently or this and that. the best thing about Larry, one of the best things, is he was very good with attention to detail. I think Tom got a little bit of that into him. But even though Larry obviously had played or coached many years prior to even coming to Jacksonville, but Larry was good at finding things about me and my form and technique that were good. And so literally, and this is exactly what he told me, he says, Mike, I'm not going to change you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to study you when you kick your best. And I'm going to see things that I would see if, when you're kicking really good and you're kicking well and everything's going great. If you do have a bad kick, I'm going to try to find out what it is that made that kick a bad kick. So he wasn't trying to tell me to do anything different. He wanted to study me as me and then let me do me. And then if I have any issues, he was an outsider looking in on what issues could have been based on what he has studied about my technique. Very cool thing that Larry did there. Frank Gans was an incredible motivator. That man was sorely missed. He was a great guy. He definitely was a storyteller, very, very motivating storyteller. Very smart man. That guy was incredibly smart, and very experienced as well. He added a lot of unique drills to our special teams units as a whole. He didn't really get into me as far as way I was kicking or how I was kicking or what I'm doing right and wrong. He let me be, and that was great. I really respect that about Frank as well. Danny Smith, love that man. Danny Smith. If anybody who knows Danny Smith, he's got to be the happiest man on earth. He is just full of energy, full of. He's got that funny attitude about him, the way he thinks about things, the way, he'll get serious. Don't get me wrong. He'll scream and yell at you if he needs to. But Danny was one of the best coaches I had with regards to just his mentality, his work ethic. He took his job extremely serious, not like anybody else didn't. But Danny was very in tune to what he was doing on a daily basis, and a very likable guy. I know from firsthand experience, Brian Moorman was a punter in Buffalo, and one of the reasons Bill's looking at me coming in there to be a kicker was because I have, as a veteran, I have experience, and I've been with Barker for a long time and so forth. And when I went into Buffalo, one of the things that they said, hey, help out Brian Moorman as much as you can. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Of course, we watched film every day after practice with Brian, and it was one of those things where Brian was a younger guy, and I might have had a little bit of doubt about him prior to me coming there. But when I got there, after that 1 year I was there in Buffalo, Brian was an alternate to the Pro Bowl that year. And then the year after, he went to the Pro Bowl. And I think another 2 years later, he went to another Pro Bowl in Buffalo as a punter. That's kind of difficult to do because of the winds and the conditions that he had to play in, for sure. But one of the things that I was going to actually the point of the story bringing up Brian Moorman was the fact that Brian Moorman, Brian and Danny were very tight, and if there was a contract thing or if the coaches were thinking about making some moves, Danny would defend Brian, and if in a case that Brian had to go to another team or what, he would want to know where Danny was, and they always wanted to be together because there was a good connection there with those two, and I was bummed that I had to leave Buffalo as well because of that and a few other reasons too. But great experience there in Buffalo. It was a little chilly, but great organization, great people, and I wish all those teams the best. Jacksonville, Buffalo, and even the Giants. Even though I was only there a year on injured reserve, but I love the Giants as well.
It's like you touched on there with Buffalo. I just want to focus on that a bit more because you had a brief stint in Buffalo, like you just said, with Danny Smith in 2002. Thought unfortunately having to retire as a result of injuries and some other reasons. But how much did you enjoy your time on the Bills, and how did the city, team atmosphere, training routines, all that kind of thing, how did that differ from Jacksonville?
Not a lot of difference, to be honest with you. It was, it's another NFL team. It's just a different environment around. But as far as the work ethics and the practices and things like that, at that level, teams are, this is a business, and it's imperative that you come to your day of work and be on top of everything you've done to get there and continue to work on things and improve. They all shared the same sort of attitude with regards to winning games, winning championships. Greg Williams was our head coach, a little extreme, but again, he got your attention, and a lot of good guys on the Buffalo Bills team. And you mentioned Drew Bledsoe. I thought that was kind of cool because we actually, played. I played against him in college, believe it or not. When I was at Wenatchee, we played against him on their JV team. So he was at Washington State University playing JV, and as me in Wenatchee. We played against him. Of course, it's a community college, so we played their JV team, and he absolutely killed us. But yeah, Drew's a good dude, and it's cool that he's from my kind of the area that I grew up in. I grew up in Spokane, Washington. I think he grew up in Walla Walla, Washington. But yeah, it's great to see those kind of guys on those teams, and Buffalo was an awesome experience. Other than just being a little chilly, not the kicker's best circumstances, but. It was a great team, great organization, and I had a great time.
Just as a quick little side question to that, obviously that playoff game in '96 against the Bills where you knocked them out with that final kick, did you receive any sort of strange ovation coming to the team? Yeah, please tell me about that.
Yes, the answer is yes. But I had a quick comeback. I'd say, hey, I'm on your side now.
Yeah.
I'm on your team now. I do apologize, but that I definitely people do remember that, or did remember that, and would talk about it occasionally here and there. But that was my best response is, hey, I'm on your side now, and let's go win some games.
Amazing. I love it. Okay, so like I said earlier, the kicker is arguably the most important player on the team with regards to responsibilities right at the end of the game, as well as quarterback. Though in recent years, we've seen rule changes that have prohibited and restricted kickers in a number of ways, such as the adapted kickoff rules to help prevent concussions and making onside kicks almost impossible. So as a former NFL kicker yourself, how do you feel about this new sort of era of kicking we're starting to see? And do you think the position is still as important as it ever has been?
Absolutely. I think it's important as ever, especially the 3 points. It will be, it's sad to see all the changes with kickoffs, and it's almost like they're trying their best to slowly take the kickoff out of the game. Yeah. Of all the teams I've played on, everyone, they all knew the same thing. There's 3 phases of a football game. You got offense, you got defense, and you have special teams. Special teams is a third of the team, of your positions, right? So, and by the way, there's more yardage exchanged on special teams than any offensive play during any game. Plays, accumulation of plays, or defensive plays. Combine those together. There's a lot more yardage exchange. So it's a very important aspect of the actual football game itself. Having these rules, I understand the whole safety measures that they've taken from that. It's just a little different. I actually liked how the XFL did their kickoffs. I liked how safe it was, and how it's still a kickoff and it's still action. It's just much safer now. And again, I compared it when they first started having issues about the concussions and wanting to change the rules. I quickly thought of, well, what's the difference between a kickoff and a punt? Well, the punt really is everybody's together and everybody's running down the field together following a ball that was kicked. Well, the difference between that and a kickoff is everybody is running into each other on a kickoff when the ball's in the air, of course. So why don't you somehow make a kickoff just like a punt, and exactly pretty much what happened with the XFL, they put everybody back there where the ball's about to land, and they made some different other rules as far as kicking it too far, too short. So they wanted the kickers to put it between certain areas. Otherwise, there were some sort of consequences for it. But the thing is that everybody's together, so there's not these massive collisions anymore. So I do like that. I do not want them to take the kickoff away from the game. I think it's an important game, a phase of the game, of course. And like I said, you could score touchdowns. Anytime you have an opportunity to score on a play, I think it's an important play, clearly. So, and again, I think that they're doing good stuff. I don't want them to take away any of the field goal stuff. Of course, it is what it is, and I know that the percentages of extra points will be different from now on, as long as they keep it at 33 yards, clearly. And I think that's why kickers struggled that very first year when they moved it back to 33-yard field goal, essentially, is that their mindset was exactly that. Like, oh, I don't want to miss an extra point. So they started kicking it differently than they would normally kick a 33-yard field goal.
Yeah.
33-yard field goal. It's, hey, no problem. Run on there and hit the ball, put it through. Well, extra point, like, oh, I'm not sure. I want to be real careful. I don't want to miss this. And that's what they were kicking, very safe and kicking not to miss, essentially. And I think that really messed up a lot of their mindsets and made them miss kicks. But I think it's cruising right along. I think that rule was good. I think it changes the way the teams can go for two now and different aspects of that. And then clearly the 20-yard extra point was very rarely missed, and it was almost like just a given. So why not make it a little bit more difficult? Now I'm sure they're going to probably start messing with the width of the goalpost now. I don't know, but we'll see. It's all good.
Mike, I want to end with some quick fire questions. You ready?
Okay.
Let's do it. Okay. Favorite takeout food?
Sushi.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Favorite music artist?
Oh boy. 21 Pilots.
Nice.
Weezer,
yeah. Nice. Favorite sports movie?
Remember the Titans.
Nice choice. Funniest guy in the Jags locker room?
Damon Jones.
Nice.
Big sofa.
Best locker room prank you saw in Jacksonville?
Oh boy, there was tons. I was involved in a lot of them too. I got plenty of answers for you. We used to putting the players' clothes, the clothes they came to work with, putting those in water and then putting those into a freezer. So they had frozen clothes when they got out of practice and out of meetings. Or how about this one? Casting of the keys. So we would take their car keys and have the trainers roll them up into casting material and have that casting material harden up into a ball. How are they going to get home? So now they got to pay the trainer to take that tool to uncast their keys.
Incredible. Okay, so when that ball hit the post against Buffalo in the 96 playoffs, be honest, did you think it would drop in or bounce out?
Well, I got the best answer for you in the entire world that nobody even really knows about. I didn't see it hit the upright.
Wow.
Because I was taken out by a guy that came really late around the right side. I kicked the ball, and the last time I saw it was going right down the middle. And, if you play golf or as a kicker, when you hit a good ball. You're like, oh, my, I hit that well. And that was exactly the same feeling I had on that one. Hit the ball well. I have my leg up in the air, whatever. I'm looking at it right down the middle, and all of a sudden somebody comes in and wipes me out. The next thing you know, I'm looking up at the sky. Brian Barker reaches down to, help me up. He said, man, it went through. And I said, what do you mean it went through? Wasn't it going right down the middle? He goes, yeah, but it took a sharp right. I'm like, are you kidding? I had no idea. I had no clue it hit the upright.
What's the furthest ever converted field goal you've ever hit in a game or practice?
I have to preface this answer, and again, I'm honest. So I was in the Navajo Nation Indian Reservation in New Mexico, where it's about 7,000 feet of elevation.
Yeah.
I had a huge wind behind me. I was picking these really, really fat footballs that were broken in really, really well. I had a lot of the kids at the camp were egging me on to kick long field goals, so I just eventually came all the way back to 71, and I barely made it, but 71. But again, I had a lot of help, so I can't take full credit for that because nature played a lot of help with that too. But it is what it is.
Very nice. Okay, so who's your favorite NFL player of all time?
Boy, there's a lot of them. I would go back to Barry Sanders. I really would, and he's been a guy that I admired all of his career, just primarily because of his size. I've actually got an inch of height on Barry Sanders, which I was floored when I first met him at the Pro Bowl, by the way, when I was there in 97, 98, February 98, whatever it was. He was a little bit shorter than me, about an inch shorter. And I was just in awe of the ability that man had at such a small, obviously he was muscle and he was very fit, very strong, of course. But just to watch the kind of moves that he in the embarrassment of the guys trying to tackle him. Yeah. Thank God I never had to get involved in trying to tackle him. I did tackle Herschel Walker one time though, but he didn't make a move on me. He kind of ran right at me. I'm like, okay, I'll just grab onto a leg and hold on. But so Barry Sanders for sure, I think is one of the most impressive athletes I've ever witnessed firsthand. Now there's guys these days that are extremely good too, but I just watch football because of the game. I don't really get too involved in the players and things like that, but definitely still think Barry Sanders is an all-time stud.
Absolutely. And you touched on your Pro Bowl appearance there, so I want to know, can you describe how it felt to represent the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Pro Bowl in 1997?
It was incredible. We had 5 of us. It was me and Brian, Barker, Tony Baselli, Mark Brunell, and Jimmy Smith. There was 5 of us there that year, and that was one of the more players from one individual team that were representing the Pro Bowl. So being such a fairly new team, I thought that was an incredible thing to be there and have those 4 other guys there with me. And Pete Stoyanovich had an incredible year that same year that I was voted to the Pro Bowl, and we did vote for Pete. So that's a thing too that people don't realize, that we as players have to vote for who we believe is the best at whatever positions, right? So obviously the specialists are going to vote for specialists, and we voted for Pete Stoyanovich, and I don't know how the ballots went. Eventually, clearly they were in my favor. And the thing is, I think there was an article in the USA Today that came out a couple weeks prior to the voting, and I think that helped my fan votes, because it put me, and it had to do with me and kicking. I had a lot of points that year. I think actually I led the league in scoring that year, 134 points. So I think that helped out quite a bit. But again, I'm not just me. It was incredible to be there with having the Jaguar helmet on and supporting a team that was only 3 years old. That was really what was so cool about that, is we were a very young team and we had incredible athletes on that team, and memories that I'll never forget. Fantastic.
Okay, so I'm genuinely intrigued. Do you have to know all of the offensive and defensive play calls as a kicker, or are you just primarily focused on putting it through the uprights?
I didn't have to know anything about offense or defense, not one thing. I never was sitting in on an offense or defensive meetings. It was just special teams. And of course there's X's and O's in the special teams. You got the punt return, kickoff return, field goal block. There's 6 different areas of special teams. So there's things that you would have to kind of know of or know about. But again, my job is a very specific skill. Mm-hmm. I don't need to be worrying about where a guy might be coming from or this. I wanted purposely to ignore it, because I didn't want anything that would affect the way I think about each kick to affect me, essentially. Yeah. So I just focused on my job and what I needed to do to make the kicks. And yeah, with kickoff coverage, it was important and imperative in some cases for me to put the ball a certain direction and distance and all that. And that was, it's a little challenging at times. But again, it's, things worked out, and it was challenging. It was challenging at times to have those kickoffs, and occasionally some guys came through, and at that point you got to be an athlete. And I think Tom Coughlin was quoted once in an interview saying that Mike Hollis is a football player, like thinking that he's not just a kicker, he's actually a football player. I'd made some tackles, and again, that was my mindset. I want to make sure these guys, my teammates, my coaches, and the fans, I want to make sure that they know I'm in it. I'm in it to win. I'm committed to my team, and I'll do whatever I can to make plays, regardless of my size.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Okay, so as a former Jacksonville Jaguar, and given that I'm a fan, I have to ask this: can you give me a Duval?
Duval!
There it is. Perfect. That's the perfect way to end it. Mike, thank you so much for your time today. Where can people find you on social media, and also check out your great academy, Proform Kicking?
Proform Kicking, Instagram's Proform Kicking, Twitter's Proform Kicking. I've got a personal Instagram is Mike Hollis NFL, Hollis Mike on Facebook, or Proform Kicking on Facebook. They're all there.
Fantastic. I'll make sure to leave all the links below so people can find you and check it all out. Mike, once again, thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Seb.
And there he goes, the brilliant Mike Hollis, the man who spent 7 years slotting home field goals for my favourite team, now coaching up the next generation of NFL talent at the kicker position. Please go and check out his academy and reach out to Mike if you'd like to improve your ability as a kicker by learning from one of the best, one of the most accurate kickers in league history. And it's not hard to see why. I've got many more great guests coming very soon, so stay tuned right here on SebTalksSports. And to take us out as usual, here's another brilliant track by All-Pro New York Giants running back, turned music creator, and friend of the show, David Wilson. Catch you soon, guys.